and tonight we'll find out the exact matchups from Pots 1 and Pots 2 in the Concacaf Champions League. So what is the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League in its current form here entering 2020? It's the best 16 teams from North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. And tonight we'll find out the 8 matchups, 2-leg series which begin in late February. And Devin, as we know of the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League, it's now very much merit-based. Everyone here either won their league, won an important trophy in their country, or qualified through the Scotiabank Concacaf League.
Grabbed a couple extra spots this year, didn't we? 6 to be exact through the Concacaf League. So how did everybody exactly get here? Let's talk about that and break it down. You get champions of the Apertura and Clausura 2018, 2019. Teams like Club America, Cruz Azul, Tigres, and of course, León. León is an interesting one. We're going to talk about the seedings, what pot they're going to end up in, but then how about the MLS squads? Seattle Sounders, they're stepping in. LAFC, debutantes. Can they continue their beautiful run that we saw through the MLS regular season? Unfortunately, they couldn't really finish it off in the postseason, so now can they make a run on the international stage? Atlanta United, we've seen them before, quarterfinalists last year. Of course, former MLS Cup champions, how did they get in? They were the US Open Cup champion of 2019, taking down Minnesota United. And then we can have some fun with other teams. Canadian Premier League, Montreal Impact, they actually won it because they won the Canadian Championship. That's another way. Again, we're going to break all this for you, how you can get in, what you're capable of to do here, because sometimes you have more than one option, okay? You can go here, you can go there. Let's keep going. Saprissa, the big giants, they know what they're capable of. They're trying to now show the world once again that South American flavor, the Caribbean, can actually push in and give everybody a run for their money. Motagua, San Carlos, there's a lot of teams that have a real good opportunity. But the question is can they take down a Liga MX team? That's the question that everybody wants to know, and we're going to answer that for you.
So that is one of the questions, is can they take down a Mexican team? But Monterrey no longer in the competition. That shows how merit-based it is. The defending CONCACAF Champions League champions, they've struggled in regular season play in Liga MX, so they are not in this competition. León is in there along with Cruz Azul and Club America. And we're going to talk a little about Cruz Azul right now, which is an opportunity to talk about Cruz Azul, which is in this competition, and a team that has been very good in league play for the last few seasons.
So I'll tell you right now, I'll give you a little heads up here. John Arnold and Arch Bell, we had a little fun with them off screen saying, who were your spoilers of the dark horses, if you will? They're going to laugh at me because this is a big team. But based upon the way that they played this year, Cruz Azul is my dark horse. I'm just going to throw it out there right now, have a little fun. There's a reason for that, and I'll back it up because I'll let them yell at me. We can talk about all this and that, and what about this player, Tigres, and everybody that's been there before. That's my team, but they're a team that, they've got a lot of experience. They've shown us there before. They're only one of 4 clubs to successfully defend their title. Now, that's the old school way. Go back to 96, 97, the last time they would do it. This is their 6th appearance, and of course, champions in 2013, 2014.
Well, Flaco Siboldi, just 54 years of age. Interesting. Cruz Azul has had kind of a manager carousel there. Caixinha is no longer there, and Siboldi led them to the League's Cup last year in the United States. Now we move on to Tigres. This is the team that has dominated Mexican football. They've won everything but the Champions League. They've been the runner-up 3 times in the last 4 seasons, and including last year, a heartbreaking loss against crosstown rival Monterrey. Tigres has so much talent, but yet to lift the trophy.
It's sad, isn't it? And this is my pick for the winner this year. Again, I'm just going to throw it out now. We're going to have a little fun. So why? It's the experience. Tuca Ferretti, the composition of his squads, what they've been capable of. Some of the big names. Hugo Ayala, CONCACAF Best 11 center back. How about Gignac? Now that's the big one for me. What is he going to be? Is he going to show up? Because remember last year, he didn't show up to the final stages, the final to be exact. So now, can he come in maybe a little bit early on, provide a little boost? Because you and I were talking off air, this is a team they're getting a little long in the tooth, getting a little bit old. If he's not up top to put goals in the back of the net, who's going to step in and help them out?
And they must be a motivated team coming into the Champions League. They lost in the quarterfinals of Liguilla to Club America 5-4. So a team that's perennially there lifting the Liga MX trophies has a longer winter heading into the next tournament.
It's crazy to think with all of the experience that they have and everything that they're capable of, they've never won an international championship. That's why I think this is their year. Finally, they've gotten an opportunity to where, okay, they've looked in the off-season, if you will. It feels like it's never ending for them, and that's one of the arguments of why they're so good against MLS teams. But, I just think that this is finally the year they can step up and make a run at it.
Next up, Club America. They clinched their spot in the grand finale in a couple of weeks, the Liga MX's championship, and this is the most historic team in CONCACAF. 7 titles, most all-time, 2 in the current edition, which enters its 12th season. Club America, always one of the favorites.
It's another one of those teams that has been able to defend their titles back-to-back, 14, 15, 15, 16, and now what? You've lost some pieces too. Oscar Peralta, he ends up at Chivas. Who's going to step up there? Ochoa now steps in. He's the goalkeeper, but we actually saw him live last night in their semifinal matchup against Montreal. So again, a team that's got a lot of experience. For me, I just don't necessarily think they can make a run again.
Very interesting. They're one of these teams that seems to peak at the right time. They finished 6th in the regular season in Liga MX. Here they are in the final against the number 8 seed Monterrey. Those teams seem to turn it on, maybe kind of go lackadaisical through the regular season, but they're not afraid to turn it on in the playoffs. Now to a surprise team here in the CONCACAF Champions League in 2020. It's the Montreal Impact. They changed managers in order to get into the MLS Cup playoffs. They didn't do that, but Wilmer Cabrera led them to the Canadian Championship. So they're the lone Canadian representative, the Montreal Impact, and very exciting for this competition. They have a new manager, Thierry Henry.
I've heard of him.
Yes.
He's done some things,
yes.
hasn't he? We're just waiting for him to do some things at the managerial level now. You know, aren't we? He steps over to France. Wasn't necessarily the welcoming that he wanted to, because he did great things as an assistant for Belgium and felt like maybe that success would carry over. He's got some big pieces in there. Piaté is back. Bojan, nice piece. Nice pieces that they've been able to put together. Defensively, I have no problem with them. It's what does this midfield like look going forward? They don't have a single right back right now. Based upon the contract situations and the way things are playing out, they have to find the way in the offseason to start to lock down some numbers. So remember, this team has been right there as well, Canadian champions. That's how they were able to get in. They've done that a few times. And oh, by the way, they lost the final back in 2014, 2015. So a team that's had some experience. Most of those guys weren't there, but when the club has been there, you can kind of build off of that.
And this competition means more to certain cities than others. It is huge in Montreal. We've seen the Olympic Stadium filled to the brim for that championship series, for other series. Even going back to their pre-MLS days, Montreal has loved the Champions League. They had an epic 5-4 aggregate series in the quarterfinals over a decade ago. It is a Champions League team in Montreal.
It's picked up some nice pieces as well. Kyoto from Houston Dynamo, you're familiar with those boys.
Yes.
He's come over, and so again, Thierry Henry has picked up some nice pieces, but you know, who's next up? Who can maybe make a run of this? Maybe an MLS team? NYCFC? Is that maybe, you know, we saw, okay, they had a nice run in the Eastern Conference of the MLS, but now what is the next step? And this is a team that is showing regularly in the regular season of MLS, they're able to get some results. Now it's time to step out of the comfort zone. Let's do something at the international level. Let's take all those pieces. You don't have a coach. You've got a new sporting director, Claudio Reyna gone, he now goes to Austin Bold. Who can now step in and maybe help that out a little bit? We're going to try and answer some of those questions for you as the night goes on.
NYCFC is very interesting because they probably have the most stable roster in MLS going from last year to this year. Among the teams that are among the top, they don't have many roster decisions to make. NYCFC is very well set up. They had 3 players with more than 10 goals. Maxi Morales, best 11 last year with 20 assists. Bear, 15 goals in 22 games. Mitrata, 12 goals. And then Valentin Castellanos, the Argentine, with 11. They have potent in the attack. They have Sean Johnson in goal. They're a dark horse for MLS, but they have the stadium situation to worry about.
A couple issues, and I want to dive deeper into what the midfield's going to look like. We're going to be joined by sporting director, newly appointed sporting director, comes over for technical director David Lee in a little bit, and we can talk about the roster composition. Let's move on. Let's talk about the guys who took down the 2019 US Open Cup, Atlanta United. We mentioned they've been here before. They got to the quarterfinals. So what's the next step for them? They've got a nice coach, Frank de Boer. He did well for himself. It was very difficult at the beginning of things to get it going, but that they were able to breed off of that. They treated the 2018-2019 edition as, okay, let's see what we can do with this, coming off just 6-week rest with MLS Cup. Now they've had an opportunity to reset themselves. Even all the front office staff says, you know what? We like our chances. We like our roster composition. We're going to make a run at this thing.
And similar to NYCFC, the big boys should be back. They have to figure out what to do for Darlington Nagbe's place. They traded him to Columbus, but they picked up Brooks Lennon from Real Salt Lake. But the big boys are back. A lot of transfer rumors with Ezekiel Barco, but Atlanta United made their entrance into the Champions League last year with Frank de Boer. Took him a little while to figure it out. They had to win 4-0 against Redion in the quarterfinals. Went toe-to-toe with Monterrey, only to lose. And we move on to another team making their debut in the 2020 Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. It's LAFC, another MLS team that came up short in the playoffs to the point to prove next year in the continental competition. Bob Bradley's team Supporter Shield winner. Historic numbers, but they fell short in the playoffs. And you know, with Carlos Vela at the helm against these Mexican teams, he will be motivated to end the curse for MLS.
We were chatting before coming in our production meeting, and we were talking about what does this setup look like for LAFC, and I said, look, I promise you this, they are not happy. They are not happy because they don't care that their names are on a piece of paper. They want their names engraved on a trophy, and that's where they fell short. It's great that Vela got the golden boot, and they set all the points record and the goals, and they rivaled some things that happened in the past. But now it's time to make that next step. They've fallen short. Now they've come out of the starting blocks really nice. An organization expansion that now a couple years in, but your trump card is Bob Bradley. Your trump card is Bob Bradley because of the fact of everything that he's been capable of. From a managerial standpoint, this is a guy who has been through thick, he's been through thin. He's shown up each and every way that when he needs to evolve, he goes out and gets the pieces and they can form around him.
Very interesting. The goalkeeper position is very unsettled. Tyler Miller, the #1 last year, was left unprotected in the MLS expansion draft. Who is the starting goalkeeper come February? But they also have an embarrassment of riches up top. Not only Vela, Diego Rossi, Brian Rodriguez, both Uruguayan. Diamande should be back. How do those pieces fit for LAFC in the attack?
It's a well-oiled machine. This is a team, if you watch their performances, they're very consistent. And when they did grab an extra piece, they found him how to tuck them in there a little bit. And even some guys that you're not going to see next year, guys like Peter Lee Vassell, who got sent out on loan, you could still see the style that they were trying to implement on some of the guys that were maybe not necessarily up to form on a regular basis. But that's, again, where the brilliance of Bob Bradley steps in. He finds a way to go and get the pieces, and if they don't conform, he can slot somebody else in there, and that's how they have so much success.
Well, now a team living with some charm as of late, it's Seattle Sounders FC. No one expected them to host MLS Cup last year. Few expect them to win it, but they did just that. Some fortune with both NYCFC and Atlanta knocked out in the East. The Sounders hosted MLS Cup, 70,000 fans in Seattle, and the Sounders won it. That earned their spot in this competition. And Garth Lager, who we'll talk to in a couple hours, he's sort of hedging the bets a little bit. This is a competition he really wants to win. Came up short in the final with Real Salt Lake about a decade ago, but this is an older roster, and they clearly don't want to experience the fatigue that we've seen in MLS with teams like Toronto and Sporting Kansas City.
And I think that's something you have to be very careful of, because you have to understand that age really wears on you. And it wears on you when you've got some big names like Kim Ki-hee. We talked about it. He's out of contract. Possibly he's still in negotiations. You know, what's going to happen? Brad Smith, loanee. Can they find a way to bring him back into the team? And that's the issues that they have to solve, and they have to solve them quick, because if they can't get it done now, you're not going to be able to get it done coming into camp. You need to start to build that confidence so that when you do start to hit the ground running, you are going right into Champions League full force, because that's one of the ways that MLS teams have struggled in the past. Now it's time. Go assemble a quality roster composition and go out there and get the job done.
Victor Vasquez, the MVP of the MLS Cup, will not be back. He is heading back to Spain, but some questions to answer for the Seattle Sounders as they try to lift the trophy. Their best ever finish was in the semifinals. So we're going to take our first break. It's the pre-draw show. Matt Peterson and Devin Kerr are here. 3 hours. Please interact with us using the hashtag SCCL 2020. We'll have your answers on screen, and we'll answer those approaching the draw here in historic Mexico City. Who are the matchups in just about 2 months from now? Stay with us. court from Lozano. Herrera! A stunner from Hector Herrera!
And line, he dribbles it, cuts back, deflected up and in!
Actual fall in, slid across, it's ripped in. McKinney.
Zone. The zone going for goal, another great save by Navas!
Menez with time and space, puts it in!
3 options in the box. It's Moya! And it's a goal for Honduras!
Lands it to the line, and this one goes past him! What a play on the road!
Sardes again going for goal, and it's 4-1 for the United States!
There, no foul in his favor, still alive for Mexico. Jimenez puts it in the back of the net.
A lot of Blanco as well in the second half. His cross towards Ortiz at the back post, and it's the opening goal for Costa Rica. Release into the box. Pushes it over, chance coming, and trickles on in. Douglas Martinez. Green will take this one right into the middle, and it's a third goal for the United States.
Welcome back. University of the Cloister of Sor Juana in the historic center of Mexico City, getting closer and closer to the draw for the 2020 Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. Matt Peterson with Devin Kerr. This has been a lot of fun. I'm really excited for the draw. See what these matchups will be.
Let's go. 30 minutes, clean it up. Let's go. A little bit outside of that, but yeah, it's been fun. You know, we've been honored with some great guests. It's fun to talk to some of the guys. It's always great to interview players. But when you get an idea of who's pulling the strings behind them, talk to the sporting directors, presidents of the club, you get a real idea of what they're really trying to do. And even when they're a little bit coy in their answers, they're pushing you in a direction, right? And everybody here seems like they want this.
Well, I appreciate each of them for their time. Now let's look back at the best 10 goals of the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League from a year ago. I would not have wanted to be the one to decide these top 10. Abdiel Ayarza out of Independiente, 9th minute. This spectacular goal was number 10.
It's a good finish. Not the greatest of defending, but it's a good finish. Anybody that's got a nice left foot will go with that. Joseph Fernandez out of Sporting KC. Peter Vermees will remember this one. Nice little cut back across. Tucks it home way. Goalkeeper, 5-hole. No apologies necessary.
Part of the run to the semifinals for Kansas City. And then he was just on the set.
The Bees.
He's number 8, DeMarcus Beasley. That was for the Houston Dynamo, a game winner against Guastatoya.
You're going to hear this name more than once in this little list, but how about Omar Brown? Independiente, 67th minute, and tactical ability, right? Quick little pump fake, no problems. Love this, right around the goalkeeper. Thank you very much.
Who might be the Independiente of this year's CONCACAF Champions League? Alexis Corpus. Look at this hit. Again for Independiente. They have at least 3 goals in this top 10. Spoiler alert.
There is a recurring theme right now. Most of these goals in the second half. Orlan Pabon, same thing. Monterrey, absolutely beautiful. Watch this, pick that out, upper 90, beautiful form, barely any rotation on the ball whatsoever. Raguzan, sit down.
And then number 4, Quinones out of Tigres, 81st minutes.
This is my trump card for them.
Yes.
If they bring him back in. There was a rumor, by the way, sorry Portland, cat's out of the bag, they offered $7 million for him. Beautiful run of form. Let's track back a little bit. Miguel Layun, Monterrey, we've heard that name. We're going to hear it again. Oh, former champions, but remember, not in this year's edition. 62nd minute.
Yeah, left back for all of his time, right-footed free kick goal. And then Omar Brown again for Independiente.
Left foot, all day, every day. Oh, just sit down. Michael Bradley, he sees it from the top of the 18. He knows it's beautiful the entire way. But of course, Gignac, this goal would fall short in the comeback. But what a beautiful strike it is. Full volley, taken over the shoulder. Beautifully well done, moving back the entire way. Such a difficult one to break down, and it gives you an idea of his capability at the top level when they do put him in the lineup.
And then the best saves of the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League from 2019. Let's take a look back at the top 10. This was Joe Willis. We saw the goal earlier. Well, earlier in that match, he made this save against Tigres.
Kind of felt bad for the goalkeepers in the first 10, right?
Yes.
Let's show all the highlights for the strikers, but let's run it back the other ways. Baez, Pantoja, how about this? cat-like reflexes, just struggling to the bottom left. And what you don't see here is his rotation to the right and then the immediate jump to the left. That's a beautiful save.
Joe Willis, come on down. 2 in the top 10 for the former Houston Dynamo #1. He'll now be in Nashville after a trade this offseason, but the 6'5" goalkeeper with a nice save.
You young kids at home, watch the form. It's the left hand up over the top, and Rafael Garcia Alianza, watch this save. From the spot, going one way, coming back the other direction. Off the line a little bit there, but he'll take it.
Jose Guerra out of Independiente. They are getting a lot of accolades, both goals and saves. You need a good goalkeeper to reach the quarterfinals, which the Panamanians did last year.
There's something about goalkeepers. They're crazy. Who wants to be in that net, let someone launch balls at you at 100 miles an hour? Baravero does. Monterrey, beautiful save once again, and he actually gets both hands on the ball.
I was in the final against Tigres. Well, this was earlier. Cambronero out of Herediano. Don't sleep on them. They've had some great runs in the Champions League in prior years.
Yeah, thought maybe they would be the darlings again, but of course not part of it. But Guerra, Independiente, both on the offensive and defensive side, entire way. Not the best of height, but how about that? That kid can jump out the gym.
Denying Sporting Kansas City. This was again against Zusi. One save, then another.
The face is always a good one.
Johnny Russell.
Now watch.
Can't believe it.
On the doorstep. Now he's saying that counts as part of the body. I meant to do that. He'll take it any way he can get it. But how about the #1 save? Baravero, once again from Monterrey. At the time that it mattered most, look in the bottom corner. Gignac showed you the greatness on one side, but he denies on the other.
Spectacular off the fingertips of Baravero. Thank you for the compilation from CONCACAF, the best saves, the best goals. Did you have a personal favorite on either the saves or the goals?
I didn't see either one of our saves up there, and I thought we put together
We were
some
juggling before, scuffing the ball.
playing with the kids in the parking lot. I guess that doesn't mean anything in this competition.
Well, we saw so many great games in the 2019 edition of the Scotiabank Concacaf Nations League. Let's take a look back at the competition. Matt Peterson, Devin Kerr here in Mexico City. We're about 2 hours and 45 minutes into this. What are your takeaways from talking with DeMarcus Beasley, the sporting directors, the head coaches about this upcoming competition?
Well, the easy ones are to talk about the depth, right? And what these rosters could or should look like. We don't know. And he said from Atlanta United, Darren, he was like, oh, well, the transfer window's coming. They don't know right now. So the fear of the unknown is a little bit frustrating, but I really like the passion that you've gotten out of all the MLS clubs so far, because Lagerwey's backtracked his comments a little bit there, and I respect that, because he talked to you and said, you know, we don't necessarily know if we have the roster to be able to do it. The teeth are growing a bit long. Our bodies are running to the ground. They just won MLS Cup. Can they now make a run at another championship? Do it in such short succession and not exactly know what they're going to be able to do it. But he's now said, no, we're into this, and we want to go after it. We didn't talk about Atlanta United and the emotion that they have from some of their Latin American and South American players. And I say that in a positive sense because DeMarcus Beasley stood up here, and we made reference about it before, about coming to Azteca. You want to play Copa America at the Azteca. That's a very difficult thing to do. So can you have the proper roster compilation? I think Atlanta United has the ability to do that because they have guys that have played in these ridiculous venues. And oh, by the way, their own venue is a ridiculous freak of nature where I've seen it firsthand, had the opportunity to report on the Open Cup sideline. I had to change my earpiece out because acoustically it was so loud, you couldn't hear anything. And so you stand there as a player, that's an overwhelming feeling. But when you've experienced it before, you've got guys from this region that can lead you in that direction. That leads me to believe that this team has a little bit more of an edge than maybe some of the others in the competition.
Yeah, we saw the feeling, the look in Garth Lagerwey's eyes when he talked about Nico Ladero, maybe the best DP in MLS history. We've seen what individual players can do. Gignac, Benedetto. So many players, as we went through the best players in each competition, who might lead their team. We also don't know where these players might be. There's a few players, huge transfer bids. JJ Macias, might he be in Europe? Might he still be in Liga MX with Leon? Pulido. Chivas is not in the Champions League. He's the leading scorer. They paid a lot of money to get him a couple years ago. Might another Champions League team swoop in and get Pulido for the Champions League run? What might MLS teams do to stockpile the forward cores?
Everybody's got to navigate those troubled waters, right? And let's stay in the native city, Mexico City. Club America's right here. Mentioned had the opportunity to go see them play against Montreal last night. Let's just look at some of the notes we have here about some of the players. Remember, Ochoa is now in goal, okay? Peralta obviously at Chivas. Let's keep going down the list, okay? Edson Alvarez. Remember, he's at Ajax now. $17 million they paid for him. That was a staple to this squad. That's no longer a luxury. Bruno Valdez, his partner. What's that going to be? This is a struggle that they're going to have to deal with. Guido Rodriguez, he's a big priority. Left center mid. There's a transfer rumor out right now that he may not stay around with this club. That's a big piece because he controls everything for them. So it's easy for us to look at MLS squads or maybe some of the lower Caribbean teams and go, oh, well, do they have enough in depth? These teams are struggling with the same thing. Again, it's a business, and you're not turning numbers at maybe 50 or 100,000 a player. You're turning at $5, $10, $15 million a player. But that's what we talked about, where it's the next man up type deal, which is why these teams have been so successful.
A lot can happen at the draft after Liguilla. The team, of course, has Giovanni Dos Santos, Paul Aguilar, Nicolas Castillo, Memo Ochoa, Roger Martinez, among others. There are some injury concerns with Club America. You don't know with the team at this point of the season that's going into the grand finale, 2 legs at the end of December, and then how they're going to come back with injury concerns already with the Champions League coming up in February.
I don't necessarily think that they've had the greatest of performances in the fixtures that they've had so far either. You know, they weren't great in the table, right? They had to work their way into this final that they've now done in the domestic league. And someone said, oh, why can't Club America win it? I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying when I see the performance on the field, it looks disjointed. So let's transition to a different team where Club America may be struggling a little bit, but is still here, right? They still have a chance. All 16 do. What about a team like Tigres, who I've said that's my team, my favorite to win. Finals 3 out of the last 4, lost 3 out of the last 4, but that's experience. But you did bring up a good point. You said there's a lot of veterans on that team. Are there too many? Is that maybe too much of an ask of this squad? Because if Giniac's not up top scoring goals, who steps up? You look at their roster right now. Luis Quinones, by the way, not Julian. Then who? Because those two right now are the only two that have put balls in the back of the net. So if they pull the same thing they did last year and Giniac stays on the sideline for the first couple rounds, they could put themselves in some hot water real quick.
The other question I would ask respectfully of Tigres and their well-respected manager, Tuca Ferretti, one of the best ever in Mexico. He's been at the helm since 2010. That's 10 years in Liga MX, which is almost unprecedented. But does his style work in the Champions League? They've been in the final 3 out of 4 years, so it works. But to win, because it's sort of a defensive, organized style, should he just let the shackles loose and try to win it like Club America did a few years ago, outscoring teams?
We talked about it so many games, how they're so high scoring, but the construction of the squad and his ability to have that consistency, because that's something that MLS teams struggle with, right? When the player's not there, how can Bob Bradley, within his system, rely on the consistency of that program when maybe he doesn't have enough players? Tuca Ferretti has that luxury. He can look down the bench and maybe they're 28, 29, 30, pushing 32, 33 years old. He has that luxury because they've all been there. That's why they've been in 3 out of the last 4 finals, just missing that finishing touch.
Getting closer to the draw for the 2020 Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. 16 teams will learn their fate here tonight. In Pot 1, teams comprised entirely from Major League Soccer and Liga MX. In Pot 2, one Liga MX team, which is León, and then the rest of Central America and the Caribbean. And let's look back and see who has won the trophy in the 11 years prior in the modern era of the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League.
Well, we talked about a little bit about this earlier, Matt, and it started back, we'll go to the modern era, Atlanta, right? And they win 2-0 on aggregate against Cruz Azul. But the ability to repeat performances was the difficult one. Cruz Azul found that out the hard way, where yes, they make the final in 08-09. They make it back in 2009 and 2010. But that was the one we talked about, the away goals. They go down to Pachuca, they can't get it done, 2-2, Pachuca lifts the trophy.
And that was when Cruz Azul, their fans thought, we are cursed. We can't win Liga MX. We're losing in the final back-to-back years in the CONCACAF Champions League, and that opened the door, really a decade of dominates for Monterrey.
And then we heard a little bit from one of the gentlemen up here with Real Salt Lake previously, and now he's changed his tune a little bit to the Sounders, but he said, we were able to get it done a little bit. We fell short. Monterey didn't. And that was the first of their 3 in a row championships. This was 2010, 2011, 3-2 on aggregate against Real Salt Lake. They would do it again in 2011, 2012, taking down Santos. And oh, by the way, let's have a little fun. Why not? We're here. 16 teams looking to do exactly what they did. They did it 3 times in a row. Monterey 2012, 2013, taking down Santos again, suffering the same fate that Cruz Azul did, this time on an aggregate of 4-2.
We look at these champions, I feel bad for the runner-up. Santos Laguna twice in a row. Tigres, 3 of the last 4 years. That Toronto team was really good. There's been some really good teams in CONCACAF that haven't lifted the trophy.
Probably teams that were favorites going into the final, right? Toronto was one of them, and Montreal Impact, they were right there. Unfortunately, like you said, no league is ever safe with Club America. We'll push you that way in a little bit. Cruz Azul finally tastes what victory tastes like in 2013, 2014. Now let's go to Club America and the departure of Herrera and looking for those glory days. Could they find a way to now get back to their winning ways? They would do it. They would do it. One of 4 teams to win it in back-to-back titles. We told you Monterrey did it 3 in a row. Cruz Azul did it 2014, 2015, 2015, 2016. Montreal Impact would fall on the first one. Tigres on the second one aggregate of 4-1.
So what are we watching for tonight? In a matter of minutes, 8 minutes away from the draw for the 2020 Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. One that comes to mind is that the MLS teams are going to want to avoid the matchup with León. León has been outstanding in Liga MX the last couple of years. They have one of the best young forwards in the region in JJ Macias. La Fiera are in pot 2, and again, the reason why there's 5 MLS teams in pot 1, the better pot 3 Liga MX teams in pot 1 is because Sporting Kansas City was able to outlast Toluca last year. And so due to the combined scores in those series, we see León in pot 2. What else are you watching for in the next minutes when the draw is unveiled?
Remember, they're all champions. And you just started to allude to it a little bit, but you have 2018, 2019 Apertura Clausura champions. Okay, so you've got that there. Now one of them, and the runner-up, excuse me. You also have Seattle Sounders, MLS Cup champions, LAFC. They won the Supporter Shield. We talked about all the records that they set, but they missed something, right? They missed that trophy on the mantle. You keep fast forwarding. Everybody has tasted victory in one way, shape, or form. Atlanta United, yes, they won the MLS Cup in 2018, got to the quarterfinals in 2019 of this tournament, but it had to make their way here through the Open Cup. They were happy to do it, though. It was really impressive. Nice to see all those guys get together. Montreal Impact, we mentioned, if Toronto FC would have won the MLS Cup, it wouldn't have mattered, because the only way that a Canadian team can get through right now is the Canadian Championship. They would actually take down Toronto FC, they win, they get their berth, and then you get teams like Portmore United, the Caribbean Club Championships. CONCACAF League, that was a big one this year, where it's not just one team. Now you give an opportunity to 6 squads, where a team like Motagua, who maybe couldn't put a boatload of goals in the back of the net, faces the Purple Giant Saprissa, the team that has won this competition, not in the modern era, but they've tasted this so many times before, and they couldn't get it done. But they're not done, because all 6 of those teams, based upon the seedings and the way that the fixtures played out, they get an opportunity to come and play in this beautiful CONCACAF Champions League.
I'm excited for the fans and players and front office staff of the debutants. AD San Carlos, 2 years ago, they're in the 2nd division. Tonight, they'll find out their opponent in the CONCACAF Champions League. The players, Portmore United, they'll find out who they will play. And then for the supporters, we heard tonight from some of the sporting directors, they're going to be booking flights tonight. They're going to be checking all the flight websites to see how much might it cost. Can we drive to these places? There's traveling support for these teams, and we're going to see the fan bases in the United States and Mexico particularly, and then down in Central America and the Caribbean, how they are going to support their teams. It's all possible come February.
Think about the Campeones Cup with Atlanta United and Club America. So forget the fact that, yes, they showed they could beat a Liga MX team. I'm playing off of you and the fans, because that's an interesting, Mercedes-Benz Stadium is an interesting venue, and it can rival, I'm not saying it is, Liga MX fans, it can rival venues like the Azteca. And here's why. The Atlanta Falcons, the NFL team, plays there. They open it up and it's 74,000. But if you look at the top 10 overall MLS attendance ratings in the past 10 years, Atlanta United is right there. They've got like 3 out of the top 5. Seattle Sounders, by the way, are right there with them. Atlanta United has opened that up, and they'll push 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people into that venue. That shows you what it means to these fans, that it's not just another tournament, that they don't care that it's early on in the year. Is it going to be the prettiest of form? We don't know. You know, that's yet to be seen because we don't know what the roster is. NYCFC doesn't know what their coach is going to be. You know, David stepped up here. He's the new sporting director. It's difficult for him to give us, he gave us great answers, but it's difficult for him to tell us this is what we're going to look like. Here's how we're going to look to take down these teams because these guys just don't know. And for the Liga MX teams we talked about, it's pride. They are digging down deep because I promise you, they want to go and they want to stick it to them once again and go put another championship trophy on their mantles at home.
A few other logistical notes on this draw as it pertains to the 2020 Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. It is a blind draw. There's no weight. There's no one seed getting the worst seed from the opposite pot. So on paper, the best team from pot 1 could be drawn with the best team from pot 2. So understand that it's a 2-leg series. The pot 1 teams will host the second leg, which is typically the advantage in world football. But the interesting part for me is everything is preordained in the first 2 rounds, but those rounds matter for potential semifinals. So if you want to have the second leg at home and the best possible seed for the CONCACAF Champions League semifinals in 2020, what you do in the round of 16 and the quarterfinals matters. They're going to add up your points and your total wins and losses, and they'll reseed before the next draw.
And that matters not only from what you're just saying, but the winners of 1, 3, 5, and 7 in terms of seeding, they host the return leg in the quarterfinals. So it's easy to go, okay, well, what if Club America draws Portmore United? I mean that with the highest regard for Portmore United, they earn their way in here, but that's men amongst boys, right? That's a team that should blow them out of the water. If Club America decides in their first game, we're going to send some of our young boys out, right? We're going to let some of the teenagers have a little fun who maybe aren't making regular repetitions at the domestic level in Liga MX. What if they draw that game or lose? And they still end up winning their matchup in the round of 16, but then they turn the corner and it comes down to points. They're in trouble. It's going to be a problem because then you have to go on the road and who only knows you can get matched up with. I mean, the teams that you have here, it's ridiculous. Again, Cruz Azul, Tigres, you don't want to go play them, so you almost have to force your hand and put your best out right away.
And I wonder what Tigres is thinking. Their rival, Monterrey, is not in the competition. It has to be a bit of a sigh of relief. They would love to get retribution and beat them sometime in this competition, but knowing that one of their biggest rivals, one of their biggest opponents in this competition is out, the door is slightly more open, in my opinion, for Tigres this year.
Let me ask your opinion on that, by the way, because doing preparation for all of this, we look at a million different facts and figures. You said it best. This is a merit-based system.
Yes.
You have to win your way into this. It doesn't matter what you did the year before. Much like the World Cup. World Cup champions, they don't get an automatic pass to the next one. The only team that does is the host. Do you like that?
I do.
You do.
I think fans would be saying, where's Monterrey? But they didn't earn it in the Liga MX regular season.
What have you done for me lately?
Yes.
It's next man up, and that's why these are the champions of champions, and they get an opportunity to represent their leagues, their countries, and now go face off against some great clubs.
Well, we must wrap it up. The draw is upon us. For Devin Kerr, I am Matt Peterson. We will be back about 5 to 10 minutes after the draw. The draw should last about 30 minutes. So tune back in around 9:30, 9:40 Eastern time on Facebook and YouTube. You can ask Alexa to rejig us up for the post-game show. But for now, stay on the CONCACAF channels in English. If you're watching in Spanish, go over to TUDN to watch the draw, see the 16 teams where they're drawn. We'll be back right after the draw, right here on Facebook and YouTube. Matt Peterson and Devin Kerr to break down the draw. Thanks for tuning in here in Mexico City.
Set and hit on a line. Oh, just over the top. They are shut out. It all sets up for what is going to be a juicy game in Monterrey.
The header is in. Tigres will head back to Monterrey, trailing 1-0. Saprissa.
It's a penalty. He scores. Sanchez man just saved Rayados.
Gets through Valencia. And Tigres 5 goals past Saprissa in this second leg.
Pabon with a wonder goal. Monterrey 2, Atlanta 0.
Quinones. Tigres take a 2-0 lead back to Monterrey. The first leg did not go according to plan for Frank DeVore's side. And the diving save from Marcelo Marinero. Big highlight reel save. Monterrey get the job done, and they're off to the semifinals. Good ball. The insurance goal for the Mexican Giants. And now, moving on to the semifinals of Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League.
Tigres and Santos Laguna. Service headed down. Goal! Valencia! Tigres a 3-goal lead after one leg in this semifinal.
Saved off the line, and it's pummeled home. Hard to see anything but Monterrey moving through now, still with a leg to play. All the way through, Quinones puts Santos to bed. It's 5-0 on aggregate.
Hurtado, yes! Another for Monterrey. Full time. The final is going to be Rayados and Tigres.
Tigres playing host to Rayados in the first leg of the 2019 final. Another good delivery, it's Sanchez, the ever dangerous center back. 1-0 to Monterrey right before halftime. And not a bad delivery, here's Pizarro. And it just glances wide. That was a real opportunity to level us at 1.